What's good, everybody? Welcome back to Gifts from Gifted. If you're watching on the YouTube version, make sure to hit the subscribe button. If you're on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or whatever, make sure to rate us 5 stars so we can get the podcast everywhere. But I'm back. It's been a week. A lot has happened in this week, so I have a lot of content for the podcast this week. This is my new phone. That's right. My iPhone is cooked, but we're gonna get officially into all of those things. I first off just want to say thank you to everybody listening, streaming, watching these videos back on YouTube. It's been really surreal for me to have a podcast and have it have this much support for something that's so long form. And I've kind of been holding myself back as far as not really recording for like hours on end, just because I'm trying to get familiar with doing this. Because it feels weird to look into a camera and record a 36 to an hour long podcast by myself, no filter, no real notes, just me like coming off the top of my head with certain topics that I want to hit on. But again, just want to get that appreciation into all of my viewers. But let's get officially into the podcast. So this week has been a turbulent one for me, to say the least. I don't have my iPhone currently because it's downstairs, but essentially, here's what happened. So I go to work, which, by the way, I work a regular 9 to 5 on top of the content creator stuff. I'm him. And basically, the iPhone that I had, the charging circuit on the iPhone burned. And I don't know how, I don't know why, but it burned, which means I could not use my iPhone charger to fully charge up that phone, which basically meant I was cooked. So I took my phone to Metro PCS, which, by the way, is my provider, and I asked them what's going on, why is my phone not charging? And what they told me was it seems to have overheated, and apparently this was gradually built up, so there wasn't really much I could do to fix it outside of turning it in and paying a lump sum just to get that port fixed up. And from my perspective, that is something I just wasn't going to do. The new iPhone should drop pretty soon. I'm pretty sure in 2 days on the 7th, Apple is going to be having their own show showing off like their new tech and the new iPhone, and the pre-orders should be launching and available by next week. So from my perspective, why go through all of that trying to fix that up when I could just get me a quality Android real quick, wait 2 weeks, and then get my new phone. So right now I'm chucking through it. I brought a phone that I have no idea how to use. I literally asked them, what is your cheapest phone that I can buy in store? This cost me $125, and I'm not on iPhone for right now. Now, I'm lucky because I have a wireless charger in the household. For whatever reason, I just had one. So I sat my phone on there and it actually charged. So I still have my iPhone, not using it for calls because obviously I still have to reach out to people. So I have the best of both worlds, but this Android is low-key goated. It is. And like, I don't even know the name of this phone, but this has got me through a lot of stuff. But it does suck at the same time. Twitter is terrible on this application. The phone jams up and pauses, but the battery life on this is immaculate. I've been using this phone for like 2 days straight with rarely any charges, so that's lit. But that's a little side art. That's not, sorry. This phone stuff isn't going to be the focus of this week's podcast. I just wanted to quickly get that out from what I have been going through this week. But what I specifically want to speak to is growth and what it's going to take to face adversity when you're trying to grow. So I'm not just focused on content creation, which is a thing, but for me, when I talk about growth, I'm talking about you growing as a person in whatever field that you're in, right? For me, content creation is something new. I'm still learning on the fly. I just put in the work to find the camera that looks good, find quality that isn't terrible, and I'm kind of learning as I go. I'm watching videos, I'm reading articles, I'm seeing what works and what doesn't, and I'm putting it out there. The biggest block to whatever you do is you have to get through yourself. I'm not sure how you guys are, but for me, I'm a perfectionist. So when I do things, I want to do it to the best degree that I can do it. I don't want to take any shortcuts. I don't want to half step anything. I want to go crazy with what I do. And that's just how I am. I am my biggest critic. So for me, getting past that mental block of this isn't good enough, you're trash, you shouldn't put this out, it took a lot. But what got me out of that like mindset was really just trusting myself. Because ultimately, what gets you through that 9 to 5 or that actual employment that you have or the passion that you're trying to grow in and develop is you. You have to be the main thing that's pushing you. You can't look for validation or hope from other people because ultimately those other people are not going to be the ones up with you at 2 a.m. editing a video knowing that you have to be up at 7 o'clock, right? Like, you have to be your own validation. And for me, through this entire process, I've been doing it alone. Everything. I learned how to edit. I learned how to like record video through YouTube. I learned how to use OBS. I learned how to like fine tune mic levels. And it's very stressful, right? Like, this process is something that's not cut out for everybody. This is something that's going to burn you out. And I feel like from a casual level, a lot of people don't understand how much work it takes to, grow yourself in the industry in a field like this. Because content creation is not something that is light at all. Like, you're going through a lot of things and there's a bunch of self-doubt. I've had a lot of times where I thought to myself, do I really want to put myself through this? Do I really want to hit record for the 8th time on this podcast saying this wasn't good enough? And for me, the answer has been yes, I do. I do want to do that. And it's not easy. Like, nothing that you're doing is easy, but life in general is hard, bro. Like, it really, really is. Like, think about how normal we make it seem. We get up, we work whatever labor that we're doing for 6 to 7 hours, whatever that is. Then you come back home, you find some time for relationships, for socializing. Then you go to sleep and you wake up and you do the same exact thing you did yesterday again. It's very monotonous and it's very grueling. But then when you add on top of that layer of self-doubt and happiness that some people don't have, it becomes even harder. I'm happy, right? I don't know how long it took for me to feel happy, but I'm happy. Like I feel confident in what I'm doing. I see the growth in what I'm doing. I see the support that I'm gradually getting, and it pushes me to go to that next level. I don't have constant people in my ear, you know what I'm saying, like really egging me on saying do this, do that, because it's just harder to find that. For me, I'm a weird person, okay? As you should know, since this is like the 4th episode, like, I'm an extroverted introvert. I am. Like, I love being alone. I love doing things by myself, but also I love being around people. But for me, when it comes down to this content creator bag, I've done things by my own. Like, I know people, which, by the way, shout out to Jet Radio, K Caution, my people. But like, I've been doing this alone. And again, doing things alone is not the way to go. It sucks. Trust me. You want to surround yourself with people doing similar things, because sometimes that internal motivation just doesn't pan out. It just doesn't work. And somehow I've been able to do it by myself, but I don't recommend you do it this way. I want to expand and get used to making content with other people, because sometimes it can be tough, but you have to start out, in my opinion, by yourself. Because if you can't do it by yourself, how can you bring yourself to a point where you can do it with other people, be confident in what you're doing, and have fun with it? To me, in life in general, you have to love yourself first. And that's something that I struggle with early on in my life. Growing up, and I don't think I've said this on the podcast, but I have alluded to it before, I had ADHD. I still have it, but like, it was hard for me because I had so much energy, so many thoughts racing in my head at one time, that it was hard for me to connect to people my age. It was hard for me to like really understand social cues at times because I had so many thoughts racing in my head, and I was a very honest person. I would just say how I felt about things, and that wasn't really the norm, right? So what got me like out of that was me realizing that I shouldn't be cutting people off. I shouldn't try to cut off socialization because that is going to make you not feel alone. And growing up alone is like tough. Like I grew up again with two people as my real friends. I had a younger person, Logan, and an older person. His name was Riddell, and I had to learn how to go in between those things. And I've talked about that briefly, but I want to fully emphasize that for this week because again, when it comes down to growth, a lot of growth is understanding your situation and despite whatever that situation is, finding how to make it work. I didn't want to be alone with my thoughts. So the way I made it work as an early age is I learned how to code switch. And if you're black, congratulations, because you know how to code switch, because that's what we have been programmed to do since a young age, to deal with people that are not black, to deal with the pressures of being African American in the society that is the United States. It's been tough. But there's also code switching when it comes down to dealing with certain people in certain situations. Logan is younger. So for me to like have value in that relationship, I would have to understand the things that he found cool, that he found, attractive. And then when it came down to dealing with Riddell, I would have to find other ways to deal with that. And that's like playing that in between field was big because I think that is single-handedly what led to who I am today, because learning that on my block at the age of like 10 years old, 9 years old, whatever, I took that skill and I attributed it to life on the internet and to life in high school because I understood how to fit in many different crowds. A big part of fitting in to what society is, or fitting in to the norm of things like this, is understanding these crowds and understanding how to go in and out. So in high school and even in middle school to a certain degree, even though I hated middle school. I went to like 9 or 10 different middle schools over and over and over because of behavior. I was getting picked on, all type of stuff. But like I didn't really mature in that way until high school. So I'm focused on that. But like I could be cool with the cool kids who had very materialistic views and found things. I could be cool with the nerds, which by the way, I hate the phrase nerds. To me, nerds is just people who rock with like dope stuff. That's just different. You know what I'm saying? That was me to a T. So I could rock with them. I could rock with the readers. I could rock with the like basic introverts who didn't really want to open up to anybody. And a lot of that is based on this one skill that people have a very hard time understanding how to do. And guess what that skill is? Listening. That's right, listening. Let me do a quick spin in my chair and say it again. Listening. That was probably weird for you guys who are listening on the audio version, but it'd be like that. I had to learn how to listen. And a lot of people aren't honest about that. A lot of people claim as if like they're great listeners. Listening with no intention of responding and listening to just simply take in information, evaluate that, those are two different things. So when I learned how to listen to Logan when he was talking about Beyblades and all this other stuff that I had no idea of, I was able to take that experience, listen to exactly what he was saying, and find ways to relate to him or get closer to him from that. And then with Riddell, it was the same thing. If I was listening to just respond, there would be no value in that relationship that I was trying to cultivate with both of those boys. It wouldn't be there, right? So from doing that, I took that skill into regular people life. Now, the way that I talk to people, I listen to the energy that you put out. I take that in, and I quickly evaluate if I want to surround myself with that energy or what do I want to contribute to tilt that energy in the right direction. Because what I've noticed about life a lot too is people are very uncompromising. A lot of people are not willing to admit that they're wrong, to change the way that they behave or act around people. A lot of people are stuck in their ways, especially on social media, especially on this device in my hand right here, especially on this. People don't want to change. They don't. And as someone who runs a lot of Twitter spaces, which by the way, if you don't know what that is, tap in, you know what I'm saying? All the links are here, but it's basically a realm where I can go on my phone, create a room, bring people up, and talk about a random topic. I think that's a great example of what I'm about to segue into. People think that they are right about everything. And we're all guilty of it. Like, sometimes we feel like we handle things in the best of ways and other people have to adapt. But simply admitting that you're wrong about something and you're not all knowing can go a long way in connecting and understanding to connecting to someone and understanding exactly how they are. So for me personally, on these applications, when I'm trying to mediate situations, people are so used to what they know. Some people grow up in environments where it's perfectly okay to curse someone out and talk to them however you want to talk to them. Other people are born in situations where that's taboo. You can't do that. And when those personalities are clashing and going against each other, some people can get turned off by the other's reaction. However, for me, I go with context. Context is something that's key for me when it comes down to understanding and empathizing to whatever people are going through. Because sometimes people might act brash in that way simply because they are going through things that we do not know. Some people go home and they're getting abused by their parents. They feel super alone. And sometimes the way that they lash out, it has nothing to do with what you said or what you did, but maybe the cadence or the mannerism that you showed reminds them of something negative or toxic in their life. And they do what they have done to cope with it. They just lash out, right? And they anger out. That doesn't necessarily make them a bad person, but a lot of people don't want to go through that extra work of like understanding and like dealing with their emotions. They just want you to be regular. And I can understand that. Because again, a big flaw that I have is I try to look past whatever people present themselves as, because I know that deep down inside there's something you don't want to put out there, and I have to respect that. And the way that you find out what that is through talking to that person more and connecting with them on a deeper level. Ironically, my name, which is Jibby, the meaning of that is to know the darkness, to understand someone deeper than what their surface level is. So my entire life, I have always tried to do that for many different people. I've had many friends that are alienated and shunned from my other friends, but I'm still tight with them because I see the positivity in you. I see the brightness in you, and I support that 1,000%. But it's not healthy because I should not have to be risking my time, my social anxiety, whatever, to mediate another situation between two people. So I'll give you a prime example of what I'm speaking to, right? It's the idea that a person can come up into a certain situation, yell over everybody else, and they can come off as like stupid, annoying, whatever. But if you don't understand the context of why they're doing some of those actions, you can cast a assumption about that person's character that can be kind of incorrect. But you also have to acknowledge that sometimes that doesn't matter, because this world isn't always a forgiving world when it comes down to understanding people's flaws and people's issues. Sometimes it's literally just, what are you doing and why are you deviating from what the norm is? And I kind of resent that fact, but it's true. Like, we shouldn't have to always know the other things. Sometimes you should have a genuine goodness about you to dig those feelings underneath and not treat people the way that you feel like you have to project. It's not cool to always involve random people with how you're feeling, and sometimes it's important to just isolate yourself and work those feelings out individually before surrounding yourself with other people. It just is. And The growth aspect comes in here because you are identifying something that you know isn't correct and you're trying to correct that. And acknowledgement is the very first step in growing in anything. You have to acknowledge what your flaws are. You have to acknowledge what works and what doesn't work. And that goes for content creation, but also just life in general. And for me, through having to mediate some of these relationships in multiple settings, I understand that now. Because initially, I would care so much about this misunderstood person compared to acknowledging the hurt or the impact that they were doling out on other people in the community. And understanding that both things can exist, but you at the end of the day have to deal with it in the right and respectable way. That goes a long way. So acknowledgement is the first step to growth in life, period. The second step in my mind is execution. Acknowledgement and then execution. Because to do anything at any high level, to be more efficient at your job, to pump out a bunch of videos, is acknowledgement of what your situation is and execution based upon what you're reading, right? When I started this YouTube channel and I uploaded my first video, I acknowledged that I was not good, right? But I executed understanding that this is part of the journey. This is part of the chronicle that I'm trying to build up, and I have to go through those rough patches to get better. So acknowledging your weakness, but executing anyway in spite of that is very, very important to growing, because then you have to have some type of blueprint or start. So then your acknowledgement can then pick up from that, and then you can make changes in your execution as you move forward. And that's been a big part of how I have been able to get better, to grow, and also just feel better about myself in general. Acknowledging areas of myself that can change and making those changes as I progress. Progression is not linear. A lot of people don't understand that. All progression is not linear. Progression is a trend that can go like this, go up, and then stagnate out again. Those things can happen. But it's a matter of you acknowledging that that is okay, dealing with that, and still going. No matter what your journey is, you have to keep going, because that's what life is. So many bad things happen in life. So many people that don't deserve things, like things will still happen to them. And we have to go through life despite that. You have to keep going, because life doesn't stop for anybody. So who are you to stop wherever you're going because of that? And it took me a very long time to get past these thoughts. It's not easy. And like, it's fine to know that this is not an easy journey to go through, but we go through it anyway, because that's what making mistakes are all about. You make these mistakes, you learn from them, and you keep going on the path. You don't forget about them. In fact, they are the things that push you to go out and do exactly what you want to do at the highest level. That's what it takes. Like right now, I'm trying to upload as much as I can on my YouTube channel. And this is me not knowing how to do thumbnails, not knowing how to do podcast content, not knowing what's the right stem, what's the right path. But through these podcasts, I love it, for me at least, because these are longer bodies of work where I am just trying my best at something. Just trying to get my thoughts out there, seeing where it goes, and seeing how genuine I can stay with these takes and my, feelings that I put out to the world. As the podcast grows, I might be more structured. I might have more of a specific base to focus on. But that's a part of why I wanted to even do this in the first place. Like talking into a microphone and putting my thoughts out there and connecting these things and jumping from thought to thought is big for me, because then I can understand what to be better at. Right? So that's kind of the biggest area of focus that I really wanted to employ. But I also want to go back to this critical part, because in your growth stage, putting yourself around other people is important. And I don't think that I've done that, but from me doing it individually so much, I acknowledge why. The reason that is so important is having another brain to pick or be around is key for not just you building confidence, but you seeing someone else's journey. For me, I've mainly like had that happen through a invisible lens, through me just watching other creators, how they do things, how they operate, compared to being in talks with them and understanding the true content. I'm funny. Context behind how they do what they do. So because of that, it's hasn't exactly been the same. And I feel like if I was in a group and I could just like see those things unfold, it would be different. And like I'm so focused and dedicated to what I do that sometimes I don't really think about those tinier details because I'm so focused on executing, being right, and just getting things done that I sometimes don't think about the journey that other people go through in their perspective. And I try to always think at a macro level involving everyone's perspective overall, but sometimes focusing on the specifics of things are crucial. Like right now, I'm part of a group on Twitter called The Locker Room, right? And we record a lot of things about basketball. We focus on that. And I feel like I put everything into that just because I want this to grow. I want this to be something big. And I oftentimes don't feel as if I get that same type of like wanting for that from my co-host. But that's not necessarily a thing of me hating them or not liking them. It's just I want it so badly. And I feel like sometimes I can get blinded by that passion for wanting that to grow, for wanting that to really be something that I try so hard and I overextend. And that's a flaw. Like I'm trying to like dial that back to where I'm not as active, but at the same time, communication of that passion of what I want to do is important. So I might be annoying, but I will spam up the group chat with how I feel or like what I think should happen or how things should go. Cause I know that if you do less is not the answer, because if you do less, then things won't happen. If you do too much, things won't happen greatly. You have to have a balance between doing less and doing more. And as a part of your growth, again, what does that start with? Acknowledging the situation, acknowledging who these people are that you're working with, and finding the best ways to communicate to them so you can come together and execute something with poise together. And it's been super hard for me to like rein that in, because I love to just go for the gusto, right? Like scheduling is something I typically do when it involves other people. For myself, I'm more spontaneous. I just go because it doesn't involve anyone else. When it involves other people, I get so structured and layered, it's ridiculous, because I want things to go well for that other person so much. I'm thinking about, I don't want to waste their time. I want to maximize whatever they're doing, that I oftentimes don't think about how they would feel. I mainly think of, I want to do the best thing for them, not really thinking they can make their own decisions. They can do this, they can do that. I don't have that patience for them. And I'm trying to figure that out as I grow. And this is my first time really voicing it at all. And just voicing that even now, I'm thinking about ways to just dial it down calmly. But I'm happy to have that flaw. Personally, for me, I would rather have that issue of wanting it like a lot than having to learn how to have that motor. Because to me, I still think it's crazy how wired I am naturally to just do everything I do. Like, I'll wake up at 6 in the morning, record this video, edit it, not eat breakfast, go to work, come back, shower, lunch, and do the same thing again over and over because I want it. If you don't have that natural desire to do whatever you want to do, then chasing growth in whatever you do is going to be hard, because you don't have a natural calling to what you want to do. It's just not there. And honestly, that is why I love what I'm doing right now. because I know regardless of how many people watch this, if it's 9 people, if it's 5 people, 4 people, whatever the number is, I am going to attack this the same way that I always do. If it's Twitch streaming, if it's like 2 people in the chat or 5 or 6 people in the YouTube chat, I will attack it the same way no matter what, because to me, results should not always drive what you do. Now, granted, you want to make adjustments to the way that you handle your relationships or the content that you're creating. That is true, obviously, because we do care about results in the long term. But results happen based off of the work that you put in. And the work that you put in should not change based on your results, in my opinion. The work you put in should be consistent and consistently growing itself, because that will influence the results that you have. So yeah, did a lot of fancy talking here, but the moral of the story is the work that you put in is crucial into getting to where you want to go. I firmly believe that. So no matter what, I refuse to just like lie down like this and just like chill out and just let things be what they are. I will not yield. I want to keep going all the way through. Why? Because I'm an alpha male. Nah, that's I'm sorry. Had to throw some Andrew Tate ideologies in there real quick. But nah. I think that is crucial for me to voice for this week. I think I'm gonna start also telling like some personal narratives about some run-ins that I've had with people in life on this podcast as well. Because again, this is more to like document my journey through exactly what I'm doing. So a lot of this is super off the top, super unorganized, super not focused, and it's not really a comfort zone for myself. But to me, I told myself, as soon as I turn this camera on, I'm going to get out of that comfort zone that I've had, and I'm gonna just go for it and do it. And I can already admit there's gonna be some spots in this podcast that aren't clearly organized to where my brain is going from here to there, but it is what it is. like I'm fine with just being myself and seeing where this lands. All I care about is the effort and the consistency that I'm trying to approach these things with. So yeah, I really want to hear from you guys though. So again, leave comments in the chat. Talk to me about how you guys feel, what your biggest hurdles are in your life, the things that you're trying to accomplish. Let me know, because I'm always very interested in hearing other people's stories. Sometimes I can take from their stories and like use some of their strategies, because we don't all have the answers to everything in life. It's important to like see how other people do things, but it's also important to have your own identity. It's important to establish who you are and how you want to operate. And there's no problem with taking a bunch of styles and making it your own. You can take the biggest takeaways from things that you learn all the time and apply it to yourself. But ultimately, yourself and the way that you operate is you. That's what I love about it. It's going to be unique. It shouldn't always be copy paste of what other creators do or how other people navigate life. How you do things is you. So taking away from other people is perfectly fine. There's no issue with that. But you have to know that you are not going to get far not doing you, because who you are is very natural. Me looking into this camera and voicing all of these thoughts in a very unorganized manner is me to a T. That's just how I am. So I don't have to force or put on this face to try to act as something, because I just naturally am that. Right? So if you're listening to this, I want you to like take that away from anything that you're doing. No matter what I do, it's going to be me. I'm not going to succumb to the pressures of being me. I'm just going to be me. I'm not going to like try to see, okay, Jonathan, he's doing this. It's going real great for him, so let me copy his full approach. No. Do what works best for you and modify that based on what makes you happy. We got to stop doing things for the interest of other people, right? Like I don't cut on this camera necessarily trying to satisfy or satiate others' expectations. I do it trying to fit what my expectations are. And to grow, that's very important. You cannot like bow down to the expectations of what other people want. You have to find out what your expectations and wants are. Because when you're meeting your own benchmarks and your own check marks, that is what is going to push you to go to the next level, to ascend, to create newer expectations compared to having it change and reset based on outside expectations. So I think that's important, but this has been a 35-minute podcast. I think this is the perfect time for me to bring this to an end. And again, if you somehow made it to the end, I know I rambled a lot on this podcast, but that's just how I was feeling this week. But if you're here, make sure to subscribe. I got a green screen recently, which I'll show off on the YouTube side real quick. Look at this. It's litty, you know what I'm saying? So I'm gonna be tapping in, but make sure to follow me, GiftedxBlade on all platforms. Also, this podcast, Gifts from Gifted, Anchor, Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts. Make sure to tap in everywhere at All Things Gifted. But I appreciate you guys, and I'm going to bring this podcast to an end. Have a great day. We'll catch y'all next week on Gifts from Gifted. Peace.